Hi everyone, and welcome to the recording of our International Women's Day breakfast panel, celebrating women in safety. I'm Dr. Vanessa Cook, Head of Positive Safety at Sentis, and I had the pleasure of hosting this incredible discussion. As we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, I'd also like to honour the contributions of Indigenous women, women like Loicha O'Donoghue, a Yankunytjatjara woman and trailblazing leader. She was the first chairperson of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Commission and a fierce advocate for Indigenous rights, land, health and education. Women like her have paved the way for future generations through their leadership, advocacy and resilience. And so we celebrate their strength and ongoing role to the First Nations women in shaping a more inclusive and just future. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Sentis, our mission is to help create safer, healthier and high-performing workplaces by empowering people to think differently about safety. We believe that true safety leadership is about culture, behaviour and mindset, helping organisations create environments where everyone can thrive. Now, due to technical issues, the first few minutes of this webinar weren't recorded, so I want to take a moment to introduce our incredible panellists and share some key highlights before we dive into the conversation. This discussion was all about celebrating the experiences of women in safety, highlighting the challenges, successes, and the roles that we all play in creating a more inclusive and supportive workplace. So we were joined by three fantastic leaders in safety and resources. First of all, we had Kim Fenton, Learning Capability and Lead at Urban Utilities, a specialist in organisational culture and leadership coaching with over 2 decades of experience driving positive workplace change. We had Ross Jennings, Chief People and Safety Officer at Australian Vanadium Limited, with 18 plus years in mining, a strong focus on safety leadership and a commitment to mental health advocacy. And of course, we had Eliza-Jane Young, Director at AWIMAR, Australian Women in Resources and Mining, a passionate advocate for gender diversity and inclusion with leadership experience at BHT, TEAS and Consolidated Mines. And we did have a fabulous discussion. So I also want to take a moment to share some wonderful news, and that is that Sentis is partnering with AWIMAR, Australian Women in Mining and Resources. AWIMAR plays a critical role in empowering women in the mining and resources sector, and through this partnership we're committed to supporting initiatives that foster leadership, inclusion and safety for women in the industry. If you'd like to learn more about AWIMAR and how you can get involved, visit www.awimar.org.au. Now let's kick off the recording. You'll hear Eliza sharing her perspective on an important question. What are the biggest opportunities to create lasting change for women in the safety and resources sector? So let's jump into the discussion. I hope you enjoy the panel.
I'm really proud about the progress being made in that. And secondly, the thing that I'm a little bit excited about in the progress we're making is around safety not just being physical. And I made the point a little bit earlier around we spend a lot of time at work and how do we take that home with us in a way that we are the most healthiest and the best people that we can be. So those are probably the two things. I can go into technology and innovation and bore you all day with the changes in the mining sector, how that's improved our ability to engage with team members who aren't 6'4" and 150 kilos, be able to maneuver bits of machinery around. That's been revolutionary for us in the mining sector as well. But those are the two ones from a people perspective that I'm most excited about and want to continue to pursue as much as possible.
Wonderful. It's a really good point you make about the experience of work and that we want work to feel safe and we want to be able to bring out our best in the workspace. And that's really what diversity and inclusiveness is about. It's not just for women, it's for all workers in the workplace. Ross, what are some of the great changes that you've seen in your time in this space?
Thanks, Vanessa. I think, what we have seen, or what I've personally seen and what I've noted is that we've had a big shift from words to action. So, previously, this has been something that's been talked about and, almost put up in a set of headlights, but there's been no real action that's underpinned it. Whereas now we're starting to see that, action occurring, and we're starting to see people, stand up and challenge things that aren't right, and by building cultures that are psychologically safe, people are more inclined to do that. So, you know, for me, people talk about the soft skills, but, you know, I'd argue they're actually the hard skills. You know, they're the ones that are very, very difficult to teach. So seeing that increasing level of empathy, that increasing level of vulnerability from leadership, being open to hearing feedback, listening to people's stories, has then sort of enabled people to respond to that call to action. That's probably before I tap into my stream of consciousness that you spoke about, Vanessa. I'll pull the handbrake up there.
No, that's wonderful. Love the stream of consciousness. Now, we're actually lucky to have worked with a lot of very mature organisations where there is a lot of change happening and a lot of great work. It's not the same for everyone, and there are still some people who are unconvinced about the need to work on inclusion and diversity. And just as a little side note, when we were advertising this event, there were a few gentlemen that went out of their way to say that there is no room for women in safety. In fact, where women should be is in the kitchen. So this is still happening today. So I wonder whether we could actually unpack why we should support inclusion and diversity. What value does it add? Who wants to jump in there?
I'm happy to jump in first.
Thanks.
Because yes, I bake pies. Oh, PG, Kim. No, it will be PG, I promise. Women belong in the kitchen. Yep, I bake pies and I break glass ceilings. What's your superpower, I say. So, yeah. And so women do belong in any role they choose. But there's a big difference between belonging and you belong in a role. So for me, the women, we belong in mines, on the rigs, in the boardroom. We own businesses. Women can belong anywhere, but having that sense of belonging is very different. And that's where we need to make sure that we have that psychologically safe space to actually invite women in, invite them into the conversation, invite them, teach them, coach them. We bring a different perspective, I think, to safety. And I can only speak personally for myself as a mum, raising my kids. They've made it to 25 and 30, so I think I've done a pretty good job there. But I saw a lot of danger when they were growing up. I saw things that were dangerous, and from a safety perspective, but my husband would just be going, it's all good, it's okay. But I feel like women see things, they see things differently. And there's just this innateness in safety first, and just this less risk tolerance, I think. So from that perspective, that diversity of thought, it's really important that we bring women in to all of those different places. Yeah.
Absolutely, thank you. Eliza, you want to chime in here?
Yeah, look, I think Kim covers it really well. And for me, I shared in the brief, I popped something on LinkedIn. I can go back to, you know, my great grandmother being involved in mining. And I think, Vanessa, you shared a similar story. Like, women have always had a place where they should be in any industry that we choose to be in. It's the same for males. We should be not limited by the fact that we can't do work because of what our physical stature. But let's be innovative. Let's share stories as to how we can change or adapt our work environment to make that more safer for that individual, right? Because it makes it safer for everybody. It's not just making it safer for the females. As I mentioned earlier, when not everybody is the same size, right? So you can, you know, adapt work environments to choose to be able to provide the best person that, you know, that you can be. I think there's a real, for me, I've had a fortunate experience throughout my career where I haven't experienced any sexual harassment, sexual assault, any bullying, any racism. But I know that I am one of the very few. And I think this is why it's so important for us women to keep pushing through those barriers to make sure that the next person that comes along doesn't have to experience, you know, those things, and that their work environment can be the place that they want to enjoy. You know, they have a passion for it. You know, we apply for jobs because there's something that we want to experience out of it. So how can we make sure that when those people come to the industries that we're in, and we're all in, you know, various different industries, how can we make sure that our work environments are ready and they are suitable for everybody, not just for women, so that we don't have to keep having this conversation as to the fact that women don't belong. Well, you know, we don't say that about other industries where, you know, it's predominantly female. We don't say that men don't belong. So the whole story, I think, and there'll be something that hopefully in 2030 we may not be still having this conversation, right? But look, we're in high risk industries, and the only way that you can improve from a safety perspective in high risk injuries is to be confident to speak up when you see something that's unsafe, as you pointed out, Kim. You know, we get our best ideas when we're comfortable, you know, when we're confident. So to truly be a productive organisation, or to truly be a productive industry or society, we need to be open and transparent as to there's different thinking in the world, right? There's different experiences. So embrace that, because that's how we're going to be better.
You're so right. And I love that you said the innovation, especially around, we hear women in safety, they don't have the strength. What are we doing to help them, say, lift the manhole lids, or what, using that innovation to go, what are some things we can put in place to actually even it up and balance it out so they can still do that task? I love that you called that out, Eliza. Thank you.
Yeah, safety and design's empowerment.
So Ross, sorry, you go ahead.
Oh no, you go, you go, because you were going to ask a question. I was just going to tack on the back of what was said there, but yeah.
Yeah, please do.
You know, I think even within you know, when we start to talk about that diversity and inclusion piece, then looking at people from all demographics, people from all cultures, all societies, right? You know, because it's great saying, oh, well, you know, my company's 50% this, 50% that. But if you read the bios and everybody went to the same university, everybody's the same alumni, everybody, it's just like, okay, well done. You've actually got very little diversity there because you've all had the same experience. So, you know, sometimes that can be a bit of a box ticking exercise that completely undermines the credibility of what we're talking about here. So, you know, and then to your point about, you know, the high risk organisations, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've actually got a female astronaut in space at the moment who's stranded there currently, probably because you know, I don't know, they got the shuttle times wrong or something, but you know, this female astronaut stuck up there with her colleague currently. I would say space exploration and that type of work as an engineer was incredibly high risk. Robin Williams broke what's the word I'm looking for? It's very early in Western Australia at the moment. You know, she broke, you know, what was the norm in the Australian Air Force when she became the first female fighter pilot. So we've got females who have worked in and are working in high-risk organisations and doing it well. I really think that some of these comments belong in the Antiques Roadshow. But again, we need to keep going with these conversations to actually remove that and completely destigmatise it.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well said, Ross.
Absolutely. So, Ross, I want to stay with you for a moment because we've had a couple of people have asked the question, what's the role for men? What role can men play in accelerating gender equality?
It's such a multifaceted question. At the end of the day, we have to understand and we have to be open to learning. You know, we have to approach every interaction. You know, I've had good experience and bad experiences, people of, you know, multiple different backgrounds. It's not because of their background, you know, inevitably it's because of the situation, the environment, the experience. So if we approach everything like something that's new, if we approach everything with an open mind, and if we look for commonality rather than difference, we're normally going to get a better outcome, because it's easy to find things to disagree on. It's easy to find, oh, I don't like the way they say this, or I don't like the way they say that, or, you know, even down to my own mannerisms. You know, I'm aware some of those don't always go well with everybody all the time as well. So I think approaching things with an open mind and an open heart, actually listening as well, you know, because just like when we mine, you know, we go areas where there's, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 grams a ton of gold. It's the same when we're listening to someone. You know, there might be a ton of stuff being told to us, and there might be 1, 2, or 3 grams of gold in there that are going to help us, right? And again, I think when we approach things like that, every interaction we have with every human being is the opportunity to learn, and that should excite us all.
I love that. I love that. So I know that you've been a very active supporter of you know, diversity, inclusion, that sort of thing. You've mentored people, etc. But as you're saying, it's really just about showing up with an open mind and an open heart, and, you know, looking for the best in people and supporting them. Ladies, I'd like to ask you, maybe Eliza, first of all. Have you got some stories around actually having support from some great male leaders in your career?
Yeah, look, I think the one that comes to mind, I've had some great male leaders in my time, either through my direct line leadership or through people that had connected me through them to have a conversation and guide me through my career. But I'm going to share probably one of there's been several moments, and I'll probably come to a big moment as I think in my career, but I want to also call out all the small moments where I was the most junior person in the meeting and the most senior person, whether it be at that stage, likely a male, has said to me, what's your opinion? I'd like to hear your thoughts. What are you thinking? Just creating that space and giving me permission to contribute to what could have been a meeting that I was just there. You know, we talk a little bit about taking on additional roles, but, you know, there to take actions or there to just take the minutes. But I was actually involved in the conversation, and I had some value. So there's been thousands of those, and I am extremely fortunate to have worked for an organisation where that was encouraged. And it wasn't just tokenistic. But probably the pivotal moment for me, and I'll tell you a little bit of a story, but at the time I was working as an admin clerk for a processing facility, and we'd gone through a series of unfortunate care and maintenance redundancies, and we'd just started to come back and bringing the plant back online. And I was involved in that process, but through the role that I had, you know, just administration, and I don't say just administration. We were, yeah. There's a lot in that, and I have a lot of respect for every admin that's out there. We haven't had conversations around what my future might look like, but my leader had been listening to the things that I was aspiring to be. We didn't talk about roles, and we just talked about opportunities to develop and grow and try to be that little bit better. And I recall one day he came in, and he was holding a yellow envelope, and no, it wasn't a dismissal notice. It actually was a contract, and he was issuing me with a contract that was already drawn up, had my name all over it, for a superintendent role. I had never had line leadership experience. I had never led a group of individuals, mind you, some fantastic individuals that we ended up recruiting for. Throughout my time, I guess, on my career, I'd always played a bit of tennis, and I was quite competitive. So I seen an opportunity, and he'd obviously seen something in me that I didn't feel that I was ready for, nor would I have applied for a role like that had it been advertised. We talk a lot about direct appointments, but this was a direct appointment that I didn't see coming, and I'm extremely valued to him. Morris Garmadella, if you are listening, thank you, because you did change. Oh, I get a little bit emotional. You did change my trajectory, so thank you.
Wow, fantastic. I love that story. And Kim, your thoughts on this?
That was a beautiful story, Eliza. And as one who cries a lot, because I'm quite an emotional, passionate person, you are lucky. I've got my tissues here, but I'm all good. So thank you for sharing. Look, men, I have been surrounded by incredible men my whole career in water and waste, in the water industry. I've had CEOs who have taught me around vision, strategy, connection to customer. I've had men in the water industry, in the operational teams, let me come out and understand what they do. And having a learning or a growth mindset is actually so important. They love to share what they do. They're so proud of the work they do. And I believe that you can't support or design any learning programs without actually getting out there and seeing what they do. And they welcomed me into their world. And they love to teach me lots of different things. And again, they invited me into the conversation. But a lot of the times did have one particular leader, if he's listening, his name's Kelvin. He believed in me before anybody else did. And he guided me, coached me, and really showed me that I could have any pathway that I wanted in this, in not just in the water industry, but at all. And I think if you have women in your team and they're keen to have a career, and the succession plan that they're part of your succession plan is, help guide them and coach them, and just be very open about that, because again, having a supportive husband makes a big difference as well. And I know that mine is very proud of me for what I've been able to achieve. But I wouldn't be where I am today without some incredible male leaders and colleagues and peers. Even in my current team, they inspire me every day. They are so open to all of the conversation, and I love that. I love being invited to the conversation, not because I love to talk, but because I really do want to make a difference, but I can't do that without them.
Wonderful. Such a good message. Men are such an important part of this solution. So, big shout out to all the men that help us be our best. I'd like to go to some of the questions that have been submitted, and one of those is, what are the 3 ongoing challenges that women face? When I was actually looking into the story of Loicha, the Indigenous woman who was the first Aboriginal woman to actually get into nursing at Adelaide Royal Hospital, she went in there with a mindset that I'm going to be the best nurse this hospital has ever seen. And she said, I had the shiniest shoes, the whitest uniform, and I was always on time, which is wonderful, shows a lot of dedication. Also makes me realize that people who have often been disadvantaged, have to feel like they have to do more and be better than everyone else there. Is that, from my perspective, I feel like maybe that is one of the challenges that's still ongoing. What are the 3 challenges, or some of the key challenges, that we still need to overcome in this space?
So if I can jump in, Vanessa, I just want to share a story that I only heard yesterday. So you point an example there of having to do everything to the extreme best of her ability, and show up in a way that made her stand out, that was the exemplar. Hopefully the lady I met yesterday, I'm not going to share names because we only met yesterday, so she shared with me when she'd first got into servicing equipment, and she'd arrived into the workshop as one of only a few females. And straight away, the superintendent or the manager at the time kind of didn't give her the time of day. If we can, assume it was more of okay, here's just another one. And what it took was that individual performed a task that only the men could do in his eyes. And replace all of the hoses in a quick amount of time. And it wasn't until she did that he then started to have a conversation about, okay, so where are you from? And try to get to know her. Prior to that, it was absolutely no chance. So putting yourself out there and having to be better than the boys, and I use that with air quotes, is something that we've had to do for years. And, if I think back through the drive and dedication of many of senior female leaders that I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the years, there has always been that extra drive, that extra determination, that extra want and willingness to not just outperform, but bring your people along with you And I think it's that wave that that is really important. So if I look at barriers, you know, that we have at the moment and setting, you know, female supervisors to the like up to success, is visible female leadership. You know, we do have the saying, you can't be what you can't see. I'm on the fence as to whether or not I believe that or not believe that. But just this morning, I caught up with somebody who just come off night shift, and just having a conversation with another female in an all-male crib room was something that individual has now left. Well, I mean, I have left feeling that little bit more, okay, we're not in this alone. And it was one person. It was just me and her in a room full of, you know, 40 or 50 other males. So I think it is that visibility of leadership, or visibility of other females from which they can learn from. I think it's having an accepting environment. You know, much the same as I just shared that story, that environment wasn't accepting of that individual or that female coming into it. So that's a barrier already. And I shared earlier around the progress we are making around making sure that it's not just physical safety, it's psychological safety as well. And the massive connection between psychological safety and inclusion is it's fundamental. For me, I see them as working hand in hand. And I think that is another space and an environment for us to continue to work on.
Absolutely. Kim.
Yeah, thank you. I do feel a little bit differently. I do believe in the you can't be what you can't see, and having that representation, having strong female role models, and watching some of my role models that I really I follow, and I like to engage and learn from them. Especially for younger generations coming in, they need to be able to see themselves and go, I want to be that. And so that is something that I am very passionate about. But I'm also very passionate about not just fitting in. I don't want to fit in. it's okay to stand out. Grew up in a home where I had two older brothers, and but I was the one in the kitchen doing the cleaning. My dad, he won't be listening, so Dad, he actually was, I'm going to come home and Mum, you have to have all of my meat and three veggies on the table. And then I'm going to finish my dinner and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read the paper. And so any celebrations or anything that I achieved as I was growing up really wasn't that celebrated. And so I had to unlearn that. And for me, it is be yourself and don't apologize for being yourself. There's often women who assert themselves. When we assert ourselves, it comes across as being aggressive, but it's not. Yet if men behave in that way, it's always, that's okay for them to behave that way. But when women actually stand up for ourselves and we make a point, that sometimes they think that's aggressive when it's actually just being assertive. So I wanted to challenge the status quo around that and just be free to be myself, because that's what belonging is. Belonging is, I feel like I belong in this role, but I belong in the organisation and I bring a lot to the table and I feel valued. So for me, it's changing that perspective that we have to be the man. We don't have to be like men, because we're not like men. We're different, and be proud of who we are and what we actually bring to the table. So for me, it's actually, that's what that means to me.
Yeah, actually, Brene Brown says something fabulous about fitting in and the difference between fitting in and belonging. Trying to fit in means I have to change myself to seek acceptance. Yep. Whereas belonging means I'm accepted for who I am and my, diverse thinking and background and everything that I bring to the table. So that's what we want to aim for, belonging versus people feeling they need to fit in.
Yeah.
Ross, what are some of the challenges that you see we still have to overcome?
Yeah, I think both Eliza's, Kim's, and your point from Brene Brown, because I actually only just recently read that myself, and that really sort of struck a chord with me. I love that, because we should be in situations where we're comfortable to bring our whole self to work, and that comes down to that psychological safety, and it's not about being entitled, it's not about anything, it's just being comfortable and recognizing, because when we've got to the stage in life where we can accept ourselves, it's a lot easier for us to accept others. You know, when we've still got those insecurities, when we approach things with a closed mind, with all those filters that we've got on it, we're going to look. You know, human beings, we're programmed and we're hardwired to look for patterns, right? So if we see something with one person, the danger is we'll project that onto somebody else, you know, and go like, oh, okay, this is a bit of a threat, or this is this, and we misread things. Whereas we come in with an open mind and we actually you know, look at those things from that lens. I think that helps a great deal as well. Reaffirming as well everybody's value in the workplace, you know, and just saying when something's done well, you know, making sure that, you know, that is recognised, that is rewarded, and it can be as simple as a thank you, or, you know, hey, where is it you do want to go? What is it that does interest you? You know, those sorts of conversations can be game changers. And I will share a really, really quick story. A number of years ago, I was at a conference, and I had a lady come up and speak to me, and she said, oh, you know, everyone here is really, really impressive. You know, and there were some good speakers there, and we had some good people around us. And, you know, we had a really, really good interaction. And she said, oh, you know, how did you get where you got in your career? And, you know, we had a decent discussion on it. I listened to her story, and she was a single mum of 2 children. And at 38 years old, went back and did an adult apprenticeship as a mechanical fitter, right? And at the end of her story, she, you know, I said, I've just met the most impressive person I've met at this conference. And she was like, oh, what, recently? And I said, yeah, you. I said, forget about what you hear from all these other people. I said, your journey, your story is an inspiration. You're raising 2 children, you're working full time, and you're studying. Like, that's impressive, you know, and I think rewarding that, and yeah, those sorts of interactions and having those conversations, you know, and that's not a tokenistic comment. I was genuinely like, wow, you're something special at 38 years old to make a choice to go back and do an apprenticeship. Amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. So
those are the stories worth celebrating, Ross, and I think we undervalue the contribution of many out there who are taking on you know, additional load where possible, and we just kind of shrug it off as an acceptance of that's, you know, that's what's required, or, you know, if I'm, you know, oh, I don't speak as well as them, so I can't be as you know, professional or as successful. But yeah, it's how do we make sure that those team members feel as if they are special in what they have gone through as well. So spot on, mate.
Thanks, Eliza. And I've had the fortune as well. Two of the last graduates that I've had from a health and safety perspective have both been like young women, and they've both gone on and done great things, you know, because they've watched me learn all my bad habits and not do them, and now they've excelled. No, they've you know, they've really lent into what they want to do. They've found what they want to do. They've got their own why, and they've gone out there and made names for themselves. And, you know, super proud. Both of them will know who they are if they're listening.
Wonderful. So it does happen sometimes that an organisation is on board with diversity inclusion and trying to make some good progress, but there could be isolated cases or particular people or sometimes leaders who are not on board and who could be causing difficulty in the workplace. How do we deal with that? What do you do when you see someone who is not supporting people from different cultures, different backgrounds, or different genders?
Yeah. Oh,
Russ?
Nope.
Okay. No, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say, again, look, we've got to approach it with a level of curiosity, you know, so understand why, you know, what's actually the barrier to you accepting this, you know, and the days of having, you know, the protected species in the workplace. Oh, we keep him because he's really, really good at this. Yeah, but he puts 10,000 other people offside. Oh yeah, but he can do this. And you know, I'm using a male example. I'm using a male example there, but it doesn't have to be one for this particular story. I think it's or for this particular answer. I think it's relevant, and it's understanding where they're coming from. You know, because but what's the insecurity? What's the Achilles heel? Because you know what, our job as leaders isn't to make anyone as good as us. It's to make everyone better. Everyone better. Right. So, you know, if somebody is better than us, isn't it better to have them on side and working with us rather than spending the time working against each other? I honestly don't understand it. I don't understand why we feel the need to chop others down to make ourselves feel good, when in reality, if we harness that, and somebody spoke about it earlier, and we all pull in one direction, we're going to win every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, look, I like what Ross is, you know, outrightly just saying, that we're stronger together, obviously. The point I'd like to make here is around our beliefs and our mental models and our behaviours drive our actions. And I made the point earlier on our representation within the industry. We know, and I'm speaking purely from a mining and resources industry here, that females are underrepresented. Our female Indigenous workforce is further underrepresented in our industry, and it is an untapped potential for productivity and advancement. But that underrepresentation provides an environment where people have never had the experience of somebody working within their crew who happens to not be like them. So less and less of our workforce, I mean, we can talk to our majors, they're doing a cracker job in you know, increasing representational visibility of females, but a lot of our workforce have not experienced having a female leader ever in their careers, and they could be through their careers for 25 to 30 years. So your point around understanding, Ross, is a really good one. Like, just have a conversation, you know, why is it that you feel as if, you know, you're against this? And it could be because they've just never seen it. Throughout their whole career, they've been presented with male leaders who operate in a certain way, or, you know, potentially lead in a certain way. So they're yet to experience what life could be like in their workforce with someone who, you know, it doesn't look like them. Let's just say that, because it's just more, it is more around not just gender diversity here. It is a lot broader for us, but they haven't seen it. So we have to seek to understand. We have to be curious. We can't be judgmental straight away, because my immediate thought bubble is not PG, but that's not their experience. So, and we want to make sure that our work environments are better for everybody. That includes that person, because they've got untapped value that's been holding them back for whatever reason. So how do we break down, you know, those potential biases and their barriers to make sure that our workforce and our work environment is the best it can be, right?
And it's being open to hearing. It's when you're asking that question, being curious and really understanding what they're actually saying back. But when we've got values, when our values don't align, there's going to be conflict, and our values aren't the same, and that's actually okay. It comes down to respect and trust, and respecting that person and what they bring to the conversation or bring to the table as well, and making sure that if you see this behavior, feel safe to call it out. And that's where trust actually comes back as well. If there's no trust, there's no respect. And for me, I really do believe that we can all work in harmony together through trust and through respect.
Absolutely.
And just on your, sorry, we could probably talk all day, and Vanessa's trying to get us back on track. Your point, Kim, around, you know, speak up and call it out, that's really hard. That's really hard to do.
Yep, I agree. Courage.
And being able to have somebody to help you along when you do call it out, to back you up, is important, which we just spoke about, you know, the environment that we're creating here. But I had just if I can share a quick tip, and it's something that I think maybe your chief risk officer might have taught me. To be honest, Kim, But when somebody mentions something that is inappropriate, and you just say, "Sorry, can you repeat that again? I didn't quite catch it." And you heard them clear as a bell. You heard exactly what they said. But just that quick stop to say, "Sorry, can you repeat that again?" There's a 95% chance that individual will change what they've just said to you and say it in a more respectful way, and then take that away to they know that they're offline and that their behaviour is unacceptable. But that was a little tip. I'm yet to have to use it, but it's ready. It's in my toolbox.
That's great.
Thank you.
It is wonderful. And the point there is that it's all of our roles to step in and have these subtle conversations. And it's about encouraging a respectful, connected culture where we're good to each other. And so what we don't want to do is wait until an issue is so bad that it's a performance management issue, or it's a, offense of that degree. We want to actually catch them in the moment. And you're sort of putting a mirror up to that person with that little tip. Could you repeat that? You're allowing that person to hear themselves and catch themselves and go, "Oh, actually, I don't want to repeat that." So fantastic, wonderful. Catching it in the moment. All of us can do that. So there's another great question. How do you encourage women to want to be part of an industry that has got a very masculine feel or energy? Eliza, you were sort of mentioning that this is still the case for a lot of people. So I wonder whether we could actually frame this as, what are your tips for women in the safety industry?
Look, what are my tips? First of all, I love it. I have been in the mining and resources industry, and whilst I haven't been in direct safety roles, more recently I had a bit of a stint in the safety department for urban utilities, so thank you very much for that opportunity. But I have always been in roles where safety has been paramount. I've been in roles where my responsibility has been for the safety of those individuals, and so that they can go home to their families in the exact same condition that they arrived in. So safety for me has always been something that I've gravitated towards, and risk reduction I've always gravitated towards that, just because I'm just curious about improvement and wanting to be better as an organisation, and also as a team and individuals. So my tips in there are probably, I want to say, just do it, but just do it is really hard. And, to have confidence and awareness around what does just do it mean? There's so many resources out there. What do I actually do about it? Do I study? Do I not study? My tip would be to have conversations with those who excite you, those who make you curious, because there are some wonderful individuals out there. I'd utilize LinkedIn and cold call some people, one of which I did that to Vanessa. But start having some conversations with people, because they bring different perspectives, they bring different lived experience, they bring different career paths. Not everyone's career path is, from, their trajectory is straight, and hearing from somebody else's lived experience is always one way to kind of not make you feel better, but reassure you that, you know what, I also have had some great successes and some great wins. So that would probably be my tip, is to start having some conversations with some really cool people, because there's a fair chance, male or female, to your point earlier on, Kim, is that everyone gets excited about sharing how their experience has been. So jump on some webinars and get in touch with some really cool people. I think there's some people here in the chat. Maybe reach out to someone on here and start a conversation.
Yep, wonderful. And Ross, what's your advice to women up and coming in the safety industry?
Look, I'm pretty passionate about what I do, and I love it. And the why behind it for me is the ability to be able to sort of help others. I think Eliza makes such a good point though, in terms of safety, giving people advice, guidance, coaching, influencing is an incredibly rewarding role, and watching people grow, but also, you know, as individuals doing that, we grow by doing it as well, because, you know, we're put in situations where potentially we've got to have really, really tough conversations, and inevitably in safety type roles, we become, you know, pardon the pun, or pardon the expression, toothless tigers, because these people don't actually report to us. You know, we're expected to be able to influence them. So, you know, it's the ultimate test of leadership and winning hearts and minds, and understanding people, you know. And that's what I love about what Eliza said, because yeah, I agree with you, Eliza. You know, you've got that one role there where you've worked within the safety department, but actually every role you've held, you've had accountability, you know, for a team, and then you've had responsibility across an organisation for people working under a safe system of work. So, you know, it's giving that taste and understanding whether or not it's where we want to go and what we want to do. But I would say at an individual level, if we want, you know, if we want a role where we can have impact, where we get to learn loads and loads of really, really cool stuff. So every organisation we work in is going to have multiple different facets. We have to understand all of those in safety roles. Doesn't mean we need to be experts on them, but actually understand, you know, to Kim's point, and go in there and go, well, what is it you do? You know, and people get excited. They genuinely get excited when you go out there and approach things like that. What are you doing there? Oh, I'm doing this, this, and this. Oh, why'd you do that? Oh, well, you know, to get this. And it's like, what can go wrong? And before you know what's going on, you're having a conversation where, and if you can tack something in there and learn something about that person, the next time you see them, when you remember their name, or remember their, you know, they've got a pet, or they like this particular pastime, massively impactful.
Yeah, fantastic.
I agree.
And Kim, what advice would you give?
Look, I've got two stories I actually want to share. One is around staying true to yourself, and not compromising your values. And it's really important for us as women, and having that growth mindset. I had a leader coach many years ago, and I was sharing a situation that I had found myself in, where there was I was with a peer or a colleague who was actually quite aggressive, and I just didn't feel like I was being heard. I didn't feel like I could actually make any difference, and it was making me retreat a little bit. And this leader coach said to me, well, why don't you just do what he does and swear? Have you ever stood up and you know, say the F word? And I just went, okay, as a leader coach, you're telling me to behave in the way that I'm receiving, and it just couldn't do it. I went, there has to be a better way. And so what I did do was not that. What I did do was go in with a curious mind and spend some time with that person, and again, ask them what they actually did. And for being in the water and waste industry for 2 decades, or over 2 decades now, is one of the things that I wanted to change was the community's perspective, or how they saw our operational team members, because they're our essential workforce. And one of the things that really bugged me was they were called unskilled workforce, and I couldn't stand it, because they are very skilled, and what they do is incredible. They risk their lives every day for safety, and to go home, and to your point, Eliza, they stay safe at work to go home for the things and the people that they love the most, and making sure that they go home, because safety's not done to them, it's done for them. And what I've loved to do is be part of that from my end. How could I influence a male-dominated industry to be able to change the landscape of how our field crews were actually perceived in the community and by our customers? And one of the things I did was I made sure that I got on myself, and I can see Sylvia from Sydney Water is actually on the line. We have spent a lot of time together, understanding the work that they actually do. What's the knowledge? What's the skills? What are the environment they work in? How can we make some of those changes? What can I do in my role as a learning lead, or someone who designs learning programs? How can we actually build that capability? Because ultimately our community and our customers win. So do they, because they feel proud of what they do. They're proud, they've got a career. They do not lean on shovels. They are They are water industry technicians, water industry workers, STP operators. They are so knowledgeable, and what they bring to the table and to our communities, they keep them safe every day. And what we do, how I found my place, was how can I actually help build their capabilities and help them grow and have a career, not just for them, but opening the doors now for women and females to start participating in that industry through different opportunities. We as an organisation are very proud to start working through some of those and working with the schools and bringing those opportunities in. So for me, it's stay true to yourself. You don't actually have to take yourself down to that level. Stick to your values and be who you are, because who you are is amazing.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kim. That's beautiful. I want to end on, I think, a really uplifting question here, and that is, imagine it's International Women's Day 2030. What does success look like? Who wants to jump in there?
Eliza's been practicing. I'm going to let her go first.
Haven't really been practicing, but we are making progress around, you know, visible female leaders, and you've heard me talk about a lot about it today. But I want that to be the standard and not the standout. That we do have representation at all levels of a business, and when I say leadership, I'm not just talking about the C-suite. That's fine, that's great. To Ross's earlier point, yes, we've got, you know, our boardroom looks a little different, yet you've all come from the same school and you all have the same background. So to me, I'm more around making a difference in the levels that, and I'm going to be probably a little bit controversial here, but the levels that matter: the supervisor, the manager, the superintendent, the person who does take on the role of sometimes the bank manager, or sometimes the psychologist, and sometimes, you know, the legal advice on, you know, if somebody's having a bit of a rough time, you know, going through personal problems. They take that all on, yet then try to manage a crew. They try to organise the shift. Like those roles are the ones where I feel we're letting our workforce down in a way by not making sure we have structured pathways and programs in place for those levels of our business. I think some larger organisations are starting to run some programs of the like, but some workforce planning wouldn't go astray. But to me, you know, International Women's Day in 2030, that female leaders are at the table and have a clear voice, and have not only done that for themselves, but they've brought people along with them. So it's just a matter of reaching back and grabbing someone as you're going to, and make it all that little bit stronger. That our workforces truly represent the communities that we operate in. We've spoken about it. Well, I know I've heard about it a lot in our industry over the last 10 years, and there has been a narrative around it. But do we really? We're still having this conversation. We still don't look like the communities that we operate in. So in that, you know, bringing younger workforce through as well. It's not just older, experienced people. So those would be probably the two things from a structural perspective, and that we truly belong.
Yeah.
And that we actually belong wherever we work, and whatever industry you are in, everybody feels as if they don't have to try and work 10 times harder just to make a name for themselves or stand out. To my earlier point, it just has to become the standard.
Great point. Any other thoughts from Kim or Ross?
Yep, you go.
No, are you sure?
You go, Ross. It's all good.
Oh, you're too kind, Kim. Thank you. Look, to me, you know, Eliza, I completely agree. You've got supervisors, frontline leadership. That's where the rubber hits the road. That's where the difference is made. Yeah, we can make strategic decisions that are going to affect an outcome longer down the track. But day to day, looking after people on the ground, fundamentally, that's where the impact happens. Those are the game changers, right? And that's where the investment needs to be made. And that's where we need to have the right people, you know. And when we talk about like caring about people, exactly like you described, you know, as a supervisor, we end up being a one-stop shop, you know, and we're sifting through all of this personal stuff that's impacting on individuals to get an outcome. You know, it's so imperative that we get those people right. And I think the other thing I'd really like to say on this is, you know, people are quite and people can be quite disparaging with terms in the workplace, you know, oh, this DEI this or this, that and the other, and any of these acronyms that come out. The reality is, immaterial of who we have in our workforce, if we've got our culture right, if we're leading it right and we're psychologically safe, we can actually have fun doing serious work, right? And it doesn't mean that all banter has to stop. It doesn't mean any of that. In fact, quite the opposite, because when we are all on the same page, there's a culture of trust. People will be able to learn about each other to the point where we can have that fun, nobody gets hurt, and everybody's better for the experience. That's utopia for me.
Wonderful.
Yep. And it sounds beautiful. It sounds like a beautiful world to live in, because imagine a world where in 5 years' time we're having International Women's Day 2030, and the conversation isn't around what are the challenges women are facing. You know, women still belong in the kitchen. Again, that comes back to that first thing. Imagine a world, which I can imagine, a world where we don't have to actually talk about that, and that's because we're opening the conversation, and we're open to talking about things. And women's issues are men's issues. It's everyone's issue, and we all have a role to play in making sure that our workplaces are psychologically safe and inclusive for everybody. And again, that comes right back down to having that trust and respect. And I know I feel very lucky that I work in that environment, and I just want that for everybody.
What a great conversation we've had today. Thank you so much. And I do just want to call out before we finish that we have a Foundations of Psychosocial Masterclass. This is one that I run, and you can see there's some really important ingredients in this. Having an understanding of what psychosocial safety is all about, encouraging respectful behaviour, breaking the bias, and really leaning into an inclusive work culture, and being able to speak up and have real conversations. These are the nuts and bolts of psychosocial safety, as well as diversity and inclusion. So encourage you to come along to that one. We also have a lot of events going on at the moment, so I encourage you to go to our website and see what we have on the schedule. Look, it's just been such a wonderful, wonderful discussion with all of you. Thank you so much for being my amazing panelists. We've got some great chat going on. I hope you've made some connections. Thank you, everyone, and happy International Women's Day.